Hi, my name is Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it.
Multifamily investors are just flat out creating massive success in their businesses and in their lives. And as always, I've got my co-host, Mark Nagy, on the call. He's the director of our massive action team and our warrior group. Mark, what's up, brother?
Hey, Rod, not too much. Hey, just want to give a quick tip to all the listeners listening right now. As you're going into these podcasts, I would think about what you want to get out of these shows, whether it's knowledge, inspiration, gold nuggets. Always come in listening to this podcast, thinking about what you want to take away from it, rather than just, listening in the background and gathering what you get. And so I always want to remind people to do that, because I think you definitely will pick up a lot more things if you go into this knowing what you want out of it.
Oh, that's great advice, guys. Anytime you're in a learning environment and you set your intention in advance, it greatly enhances you set your intention, which greatly enhances your retention. So great advice, Mark. Well, I'm excited to welcome our guest to the show today. His name's Nick Lamagna. Now, Nick has been around real estate for quite a while. He actually joined the Warrior program at my Chicago event like a lifetime ago when we had live events. It was August of 2019, I believe. And he's been around real estate a long time. We're going to have a lot of fun in this conversation because he's doing some other things that we haven't had on this show for a while, like wholesaling and flipping and things of that nature. He's got his own podcast as well. It's called the A Game Podcast, so you'll need to check that out. Nick, welcome to the show, brother.
Rod, thanks so much for having me, man. I've been a longtime fan of yours. You've always been very kind to me, and I'm a little starstruck. I'm trying not to act like it, but I have a lot of respect for you, and I'm very excited to be here.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say that, my friend. I really appreciate that. So tell, let's do the normal where you talk about how you got into this game and maybe why you love it and where you came from and so on and so forth. I know the story, but I want my listeners to hear it.
Sure. So I started out, I was going to college in upstate New York. I'm born and raised in Long Island, lived in Manhattan for a while. And, I tell everybody when I first was going to college, I was going there just to party. I didn't really have a sense of purpose. And then I'll never forget on September 11th, when everything happened and I was in the Capital District, and guys that I was friends with that were kind of my goofball buddies, they started saying, like, we're gonna join the Marine Corps, we're gonna join the rescue efforts, we're gonna do all these things. And I realized that at that point I needed to find a sense of purpose instead of taking up space. And I've always been the kind of person who's a big believer in, I'm gonna go big or I'm gonna go home. So I decided to switch my major to criminal justice, and I took all the standard FBI, DEA, CIA, NYPD, FDNY, anything with 3 or 4 letters you can think of that was related to law enforcement or counterterrorism, I tested for, because I wanted to be an air marshal and do all these things to help with the counterterrorism and law enforcement. But as that process was going on and I graduated, there was a long wait to go into a lot of these academies. So I started doing construction on Long Island, and I wound up getting into a really bad construction accident and having a permanent injury on my hand. And then they told me that after about a year of physical therapy and occupational therapy every single day, I finally got called for these academies, and they all said I was no longer eligible because of my hand injury. So I wasted years trying to reprocess, and then they told me that it just wasn't part of my future anymore. So I had my student debt, I had all my plans that I thought were in front of me, and they were instantly taken away. So I moped for a while, but then my mom followed me around with the Rich Dad Poor Dad book and told me to read it. I told her no, leave me alone for years like a bratty kid does. And then eventually I read it, and I saw that 70% of all millionaires made their money through real estate, and all the rest pretty much invest that after. You didn't need money, you didn't need credit. I said, that's me. And because moms are always right, she got me interested in real estate. I started going to, courses and reading books and just putting out offers. And in my first 6 months of really getting involved, I wound up doing about 8 deals in my first 6 months, and I never looked back.
Wow. So isn't that interesting that you had something at the time was probably horrific happen to you, and derailed something you thought your direction in your life was going. And it almost ties into that Borealis video you've got going on behind you. Like, life, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. But it all worked out, right? Because do you love what you do now?
I do love what I do. I mean, as an entrepreneur, don't get me wrong, there's days or hours that if you ask me that question, you'll get a different answer. But
Right.
overall, man, I love my life. I'm very grateful, especially when you see so many people struggling now in the pandemic and knowing that I have some cushion and I'm still doing deals and I have these opportunities to take care of my family and do all these great things because over that period, both of my parents wound up losing their jobs. And I wound up being a support system for that. So if it wasn't for me taking a shot at real estate and all those things happening, I don't think on a cop salary I would have been able to take care of the financial responsibilities that I really am going to need to over time. So it was one of those things that was the worst days of my life that probably turned into the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's what I was that's where I was going with all that, because, again, and just to flip it, for me, it wasn't a physical thing. It was a financial thing for me that devastated me. And I would have never met my wife, and I'm the happiest freaking guy on the planet with her. So, it's the truth of it, so yeah.
I love that.
Nice. I love that story, man. That's from going down to all the way where you are. I love hearing stories like that. So Nick, tell us about, where are your areas of expertise that you think the listeners should want to learn about here?
Sure. So I've kid sometimes that I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none, but I think part of what my skill set is when I first started investing in real estate, I didn't have the confidence or the resources to really play in the playground in New York. So things were expensive. It was really competitive. It was very hard to play in that playground. So I had to figure out how to invest in some of these tertiary or submarkets before I really knew what that term was. I just said, you know what? I can buy houses in Georgia for $50,000. I can buy houses in Vegas for $75,000. There was all these ways to do other deals. So I started investing remotely before investing remotely was a thing. So I have probably 10 years of experience on things not to do and tricks of the trade there for managing things remotely before everybody was forced to do it in 2020. And because of that, I've had contacts that I've put together all over the country. So I definitely bring value as far as being able to, somebody sends me something, maybe it's not for me, but it's for somebody else, or something comes in for me. I have a buyer or a contractor or a lender or something. So I'm connected pretty much across the country, which is pretty awesome. And, again, I think one of the things that I always loved about Rod's story was the way, he took a hit and rebuilt. I think I've made a lot of mistakes that people can learn from on things to do right and things to do wrong that, definitely bring value. But I'm great at putting teams together. I'm great at networking.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because you've built that network and you could do the same thing, guys. Those of you listening, you could do the same thing, going direct to sellers, going direct to property owners, and building relationships, or building relationships with the people bird dogging deals for you, or other wholesalers or flippers, or people in this business, which is what you did, Nick. And you set those relationships up so you have deals coming at you. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been doing some wholesaling recently, and you're netting 40 to 60K a deal. Is that an accurate statement?
That is accurate. But before we jump into that, I do want to backtrack a second and say that your being part of your Warriors program and having connections within that group has been a huge resource for me, because you can reach out at any point, and the networking and the resources and the connections on that Facebook page within that Warrior group is so beyond the value that I paid for it. It's been amazing. So I want to thank you for putting that together.
Oh yeah. Thank you for that shout out. And I know, especially because, you're getting deals from all over the country. It's such an incredible resource to be able to pick up the phone and call a warrior that lives in that town. And because we've got people in darn near the whole country now, and get the boots on the ground story, and have somebody be able to go look at it and give you insights as to that, that neighborhood, for example, or, all the relevant things that you need to figure out before you tie a place up. So, that's awesome. And guys, I tell the story, so many people are wholesaling and flipping single families, and there's so much money to be had flipping and wholesaling multifamilies. For example, I know you've even done like mobile home parks and things like that. Correct, Nick?
Yes.
Yeah. And you wholesale them. And I mean, what a fantastic way to make, big money very, quite easily. And so, I've got 4 students that have done over $100,000, make $100,000 from one deal that they wholesaled. 4 of them that did it. So, and one actually significantly more than that. But, so guys, don't think that, there's multiple ways to make money in this business. And if you don't have a lot of cash right now, wholesaling is an incredible way to get rolling and get some money in your pocket while you're learning and building this business. So, yeah.
Well, on that topic, Nick, I want to ask you, what is your favorite type of deal? Is it a wholesale? Is it a multi? Is it a what's your favorite type of deal? What does it look like?
I think I just say my favorite type of deal, especially on the wholesaling side, is really something that I can feel good about passing on to the end buyer. And, I get a lot of deals that come through, and I see a lot of people that try and wholesale multifamily. And one of the tips I would say is do your due diligence on that deal. Put some time into screening it and screening the people. So I help set people up with teams and help do a lot of the due diligence process to make sure it's actually the deal that we think it is before I pass it on to somebody else. So that feels really good when you get somebody who needs to spend money and they appreciate the extra work and the extra time that you put in to explaining it to them and going over all the numbers and giving them realistic possible scenarios that could go wrong. So they're not just, trusting you for everything, but they're learning a little bit at the same time.
That's really cool, brother. That is based in integrity. And I salute you for that. That is a beautiful thing, and it's unusual. I will tell you, there is some dog eat dog in the wholesale world as well. So, the fact that you're taking the time to help them with their success just speaks to, why, we're blessed to have you in our group, and I love that. Now, then talk about, when you talked about team building, talk a little bit about the dynamics that you see come together in a cohesive, effective team that's able to execute and really make things happen. So what are the qualities that if you're helping somebody put a team together, what are the qualities that you try to combine into a group? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So this has been one of my favorite things because, again, even when I was starting with the single family side, when you're putting out offers all over the place and then one gets accepted, you have to really put a team together from scratch within a day or two when you only have, on the single family side, sometimes it's a 7-day due diligence period. So once that comes in, I start putting out the feelers to figure out, okay, who are my managers, who are my contractors, who are my maintenance guys, who are my lenders, my insurance, my closing attorneys. And I'm able to get a large list of those coming in fairly quick. That's not really the hard part. You can look those things up. But then I start to screen them really quick. And I'm a big believer in giving simple tasks and seeing if they can respond to the simple stuff. Because if they can't respond to me in a way that we can communicate well in an organized and efficient manner on the easy stuff, how can I trust them with a 50, 60, 70 unit apartment or a multi-million-dollar deal or feel good passing them off to a buyer when we can't handle stuff? So I like to start out with just very basic, easy things like call me at this time or send me just this information and give them really, really small steps. And what I found is I don't really have to qualify all that many team members because 75% of them disqualify themselves by not listening, not sending me the right things. I have to follow up with them 3 or 4 or 5 times. Not my person. People will rise to the top pretty fast. And you're going to start to see the ones that like it. They're offering other things. They've already been out to the property. They've already pulled comms versus the other ones that are just waiting to be told or followed up with. So communication to me and following simple steps have been a massive, massive thing. Like even for instance, when I send them emails sometimes or text messages, I'll put just the basic synopsis of what I want in there. Or if I have my assistant do it, we'll put in, and by the way, what's your favorite color? And then 2 or 3 people out of 40, 50, 60 will write back blue, red, green. And I'm like, I got my 3 people that are paying attention to detail because in real estate, especially in multifamily, the details are in the dollars and the dollars are in the details. And if they can't get those right, that could turn into a nightmare fast.
You just said a lot. And I just want to circle back to a couple things you said and put an exclamation mark on them. And that is, when you're communicating and working with both outside team members and inside team members, like potential partners, take a look at how responsive they are, how proactive they are. And that's such a huge measurement of what you can expect in the future. And then secondarily, just want to draw attention to one other thing that you said, which is around the detail. And I love your little trick of throwing a little thing at the end, what color they like. I love that because that means they read the whole thing. That's so I just want to draw attention to that, guys, because that's so important. It's so easy to make mistakes as you're, putting partnerships together and putting deals together. So in fact, let me mention this to you as a freebie, and I'll quit rambling. We have a list of partnership questions that you should ask before you get into a partnership. And if you want it, I'll give it to you for free. Just text the word partnership to 72345 and we'll send it to you. It's a awesome list of questions. In fact, there it is right there. A question asked when forming a partnership. And, just, because you've probably heard me say it before, a partnership's easy to get into like a marriage, but very hard to get out of. So you want to ask all the hard questions up front. All right.
Yeah. And by the way, Nick is not the first one on the podcast to say that you should give little things and test partnerships first before you get into a full-on partnership with people. That's probably the third time that I've heard that from guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a gold nugget for people listening to write that down. Don't forget about that one.
Yeah. Well, it's just to clarify what you just said. So if you're going to partner with somebody on a deal, decide to do it on that deal. Don't decide to do it forever. Hey, let's test the waters. Let's see how well we work together. Let's see if we get along with each other. Let's see if we like each other's work ethic, on and on and on. And maybe do 1 or 2 deals together before you totally get married. You date a little bit. Yeah, that's just to clarify what you said.
If I can add too, that resource you just gave people, I hope they understand how much value that has, because I've seen deals that are great deals, but when you have a great deal with a bad partner, it's a miserable experience. So I really wish I had that resource when I started. It would have saved me years of stress and money. And that's amazing that you're doing that for people. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, you bet.
In my opinion, stress is more important than money in this business a lot of the times. Well, to keep on going, right? So I want to jump back, Nick, because I heard you earlier say that one of the areas where you can add value is the mistakes that you've made, right? Tell us about one of your biggest, juiciest mistakes in the past and how that went.
Sure. Well, definitely trusting people, I think, was a massive mistake that I made. I've talked about this a couple of times before, but I had exactly what you just talked about. I had a partner that I trusted, that I thought was a good partner, and I was supposed to be learning alongside of him. And I didn't know to just not take somebody's word for something. Oh, he's good. He's a nice person. He knows what he's talking about. So his numbers must be right and his team must be good. And then you start forking over money. And then things go wrong. And now you're left for dead. And you have an option to, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. So I always refer to you can tap out or you can find a way to fight out of it and get back on top. And that's one of the things that I wound up having to do is really figure out how to verify no matter who it is. Because even if it's somebody that I like and trust, maybe they haven't slept for a couple of days because they have a new baby. Maybe they're stressed out or jet lagged or just tired and they made an honest mistake. So verifying everything, no matter who it comes from, was huge, because on those specific deals, when we dug into what we actually needed, I started writing checks and then it turned out we needed a lot more money than we did. And that's not something you want to find out after you've already purchased the property and you're in the middle of rehabbing it. So that's definitely one thing. The other part is setting up, if not daily, at least weekly checks that you get everybody on the phone, you get everybody on a Zoom now if you're doing it remotely, and having what was the agenda for this week. So like on a smaller scale, for instance, my property managers, I tell them, look, we're going to do this based on performance. So if you're working from 12 to 5 every day, when you go into that office at noon, you're going to FaceTime my assistant and show her that you were in a leasing office, you were at the building, and you're at work. And we're going to come up with what are the 3 things you need to get done today. We come up with those 3 priorities. Now at 5 o'clock when they're going to leave, they need to FaceTime my assistant again and say, hey, I'm still at the property and here's proof that those 3 things were done. Here's a sign on the door to evict this guy. Here's this property that's this unit that's completely rehabbed. Here's the grounds taken. Here's the dumpsters taken away, whatever it is. If they have not FaceTime me when they go in, when they leave, and show them progress of the 3 main agendas we had today, they don't get paid for that day. And back to easy stuff, small stuff, if they can't be responsible enough and communicate enough to just FaceTime somebody for 2 or 3 minutes a day and handle 3 tasks. Little kids do that with their parents when they're on business trips. If an adult can't do that, you're not the person for my business. So there's signs in those things when you know, okay, this week we're supposed to have 3 units rehabbed, 2 units leased, 1 eviction. And then the next week comes around and none of those things have been done. Pull that trigger fast on what's the problem here. Am I not communicating with you well, or are you just not the person for this job? Because if you're not, I want to find out now, week 1 or week 2, instead of 3, 4, 5 months when on a multifamily, that could be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 mistakes.
Yeah. Well, let's go a little deeper on that, if we could, for the listeners. What made that partner a bad partner? What ended up happening?
It was an initial thing where I looked at the numbers that were given to me, and I looked at the rehab scope, and I looked at the team, and he was supposed to be putting all those things together, and I trusted it. So started writing some checks, and then those things that were coming up, I'd start to have a lot of questions of like, hey, I know you said this was where it was supposed to be at, and this is what the budgets are supposed to be, and this is what the timelines are supposed to be. But now that I'm looking at these every week, we're not really hitting those marks week after week after week. And all I'm doing is cutting check after check after check. So like, what's going on here? And the more I started hammering for specific questions, I was not getting straight answers, and I was getting a lot of defensiveness, which to me, again, is always guilt. So I started learning all these things and going, man. And then I found some other guys. Shout out to one of my buddies, Jared, but he jumped in and he was helping me, my other friend, Earl. So I started reaching out to other people in groups like the Warriors group and getting people that I could ask these questions to. And then when you started to see that there was people that actually knew the answers, I realized that this guy really wasn't qualified. And then what happened was I got a phone call out of nowhere, and he said, hey, look, I know I'm supposed to be taking the money and paying these bills. I haven't been doing it. They're going to shut the water off. The drain pipe's about to pop. I'm out. And I was like, okay, well, this partnership is done. And now I have to go and I have to figure out how to do all of this again from scratch, fire all your people and get these situated, because I don't know what you've actually been doing and telling people. So it was a bit of a disaster, but it was also, again, it was a great learning lesson. All my investors were made whole that invested in that property, because I started raising private funds when I realized how much more money I needed for that deal than the initial thought. And I learned valuable lessons, and I made some really great relationships that have helped me on future deals from there.
Nice. That's that's a valuable lesson that will serve you the rest of your life. And I will tell you, those lessons come even late in the game. I have a situation like that myself with a guy that had 4,000 doors on an asset that we bought, and it's very, very similar to what you just described. And so even for someone as seasoned as me, assuming that somebody with that many doors knew what they were doing and they flat out didn't, that lesson is not, it's a good one. And so you learn from it. And as long as you survive it, which of course we did as well, there's no issue there. We're killing it there now. But so let me ask you a question. We've got a lot of aspiring investors that want to get into this business, that want to do this. They want more for their family. They want financial freedom. What words of wisdom would you share with someone that's thinking about getting into this business, maybe hasn't pulled the trigger yet? What would you say to that person?
I would say definitely expand your network. Right now, with groups like the Warriors group, there's so many resources of good people that have integrity, have experience, have contacts, have connections, that you don't have to do this alone. You don't have to rely on that one person to hopefully help you that might not be the person that you thought they were. So I would definitely say get into a good group, get into a good network. Again, I can give the gold star to the Warriors. Those people.
Oh, that's kind of you. That's not what I was reaching for, but I just want you to encourage them to do it, buddy. But by the way, guys, let me just say this. If you're interested in the Warriors, text CRUSH to 72345. Text, that's the word crush, so we can help you crush it. To 72345, and you can apply if you're interested, and we can have a call to see if it's a fit on both sides. But thank you for that. But I want you to encourage them. That's really where I was going with that. So
one thing I'll definitely say is I tell people this a lot. When you're first starting to get in, you're worried. Your first deal feels like it's the hardest thing, which it usually is. Mentally, all that stuff, you feel like it's never going to happen. You go up, you go down. I love looking at other people's wins on Facebook and not looking at it as competition, but being inspired by every single day. Somebody's posting, holy crap, I got my first deal. It took me 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year and a half, but I did it. And now we're going to make all this money. So be happy for those people and celebrate them, because your time is going to come too. And I look at that and I go, you know what? I watched that person for the last 3-6 months post looking for deals, looking for teams, and now they got one. I can do the same thing. So I look at it as if they can do it, I can do it. And that inspires me. So there's deals out there and your day will come. Just stay persistent, stay optimistic, and don't force a deal. I'd rather see you wait and get a good deal than get into a bad deal, because that sucks.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we love, and I have all the Warriors post in the Facebook group, because, that's the whole purpose for that. And then when we have our weekly calls, I circle back to those wins and call them out in front of the whole group on the group calls. And because it inspires everybody. And guys, if you're listening and you hear about someone's success and it doesn't inspire you, then you need to go look in the mirror. Okay, because that's jealousy, that's regret, there's some issues there that you've got to deal with, honestly, respectfully. I'm saying this from my heart, okay? Because you're not going to get ahead feeling like you're less than if someone else is successful. You're going to get ahead if you're inspired by that and motivated by that to push forward for yourself and for your family. Okay, so that's how you want to look at that stuff. So pay attention to that. And I can't tell you that I haven't fallen in that trap in the past. It's been a long time now myself, where I've got some jealousy or some angst around someone else and thinking that I may not be good enough to do that or whatever. But if that's the case, just take a look at that and spend some time working on being the best version of yourself. In our Warrior program, we do these high performance calls that relate to things along those lines, because that's such an important piece is continually, looking in the mirror every year and being the best version of yourself in every aspect of your life, not just financially, your relationships, your health, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I'm rambling.
No, you're absolutely
right.
Right now, I've noticed so many people ask me about the community when they get on calls with myself and our team here. And everybody is so isolated in the world right now. Being in a group of people where you actually see people doing deals, that is the number one thing that I tell people has been the biggest game changer for me personally. When I see somebody in the group who's out there crushing it, closing on a deal, it lights a fire under my butt to get out there and do more. And it pulls you further just by being around people that are doing that.
Yep.
So you're
that's
right.
what it should do. That's absolutely right. That's what it should do. So Nick, tell me, what's your driver? What's that why that's making you kick butt? That because you're a hustler, man. You got your podcast going, you've got deals going. You help other people anytime they ask for it. What's the driver, brother?
I've always been somebody who likes to bring, like I said, my A game to everything. But I think a lot of it spawned from my accident, to be honest. When you have a plan in front of you and everything's worked out, and you think something's going down a certain direction, and then you lose your confidence, your self-esteem, your finances, your future, everything almost overnight, it puts you in a panic. And I feel like that's part of what has motivated me to always go, because you just never know what tomorrow is going to bring, or what stresses or tragedies or injuries or something. So while I have breath and I have energy and I have a roof over my head and I have technology and contacts, I just try and maximize that every day, because you just, I just have that fear that everything, I know it can be taken away any day. So I'm always trying to build and grow. And just at the end of the day, when I go to sleep, I want to know that I used the day great and I was efficient with what I did and I served a purpose instead of just sitting on the couch and, watching Netflix all day. It's just, I don't know, that inner dialogue to me. I'm very hard on myself.
Well, and guys, that's one of the things that I speak about quite regularly in my boot camps is to monitor that inner dialogue, is to actually be an observer. It's a little foofy to talk about, but to actually step outside of yourself and observe your inner dialogue and pay very, very close attention, especially when you're describing yourself, because it's a natural human tendency to self-depreciate or make yourself, even talk down to yourself. And I catch people whenever I'm in conversation, because when you speak something, your brain is listening. So you just want to be really, really careful what you say to describe yourself, your situation, how you feel, because again, your brain is listening. So that's really insightful, buddy. I'm glad you said that.
All right, Nick, let's end it with one more question here, man.
I may want to ask more than that, but go ahead. You ask your question.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well,
yeah.
So what I want to know, give us one or two action steps that a listener listening to this entire podcast should go out and actually do right now to get started with all the things that we talked about today.
Great question.
I would say one action step is figure out what you want and what your strategy is, because especially on the multifamily, I see people just start hitting me up saying, hey, I want a commercial deal. I want a multifamily. I want a commercial deal. I want a multifamily. And it's like, okay, well, like what exactly do you want? Are you looking for a certain cap rate, a certain cash on cash, a certain cash flow, a certain market? What's your strategy? Are you going to fix it up and sell it? Are you going to refinance it? How many doors? How much do you have to put down? Like, did they think about these certain things? Do you have partners? So get a little bit more specific on what you have and what you're looking for as far as an attainable size, price point, exit strategy, because that's going to help you really target in on people and areas and contacts that can help get you there. I made that mistake of just throwing a blanket out there of, I just want a deal. Figure out what you want and what a deal is that fits you right now. And again, it can always change and grow, but that would be one thing, is really sit down and go through that. And then the other thing would just be, don't overthink it and don't get discouraged. You have to put yourself out there. And I love that Rod keeps talking about, that personal dialogue and insecurity, because even me now, after all this time, I still feel silly sometimes posting, oh, I'm looking for somebody here. Like you get people that do say stupid things, but overall, most people are good and they want to help you. So don't let the fear of what other people are going to think or might see when you're going out there and you're trying to better yourself, better your life for yourself and your family. Anybody who's going to get down on you or discourage you from that, it's because they're jealous, or you're never going to get criticism from somebody who's doing more than you. Only people that are doing less. So just, go after it, put yourself out there, and don't let that insecurity or that doubt deflect that. Just go after it, because it's out there and it'll happen and people will help you.
Yeah. Let me. Okay.
One thing I want to say real quick is that what you mentioned on what you're looking for in deals, even if, the Warrior Group is not the right fit, our team will help you do that as well in figuring out your asset criteria and picking all those things. And so if that's something you do need help with, definitely text in Crush, and whether it's a fit or not, our team will definitely help you there.
Help you create your investment criteria. Yeah, because that's the first step. You can't be all things to all people. And the only analogy that I've come up with, I need to come up with a better one, is you can't shoot with a shotgun. You need to shoot with a rifle, period. Okay, that you need to have a honed approach. I want to circle back to one thing you said, as far as naysayers and people in your life. You talked about people that have more than you will never criticize you. But guys, it's so easy to settle as it relates to your peers. And your peers are probably the most important decision you can possibly make, because they will impact every area of your life, not just finances. Those 5 people you're around, or 10, whatever it is, you're going to be as happy as they are, you're going to be as healthy as they are, and you're going to be as financially successful as they are. So so many people default to the people they work with in their W-2 job, or people they went to school with. And those people, again, out of jealousy or fear, and might just be fear of losing you because you're improving your life, will hold you back if you allow them to. And it could be family as well. So a line that I like to say is choose your family, love your family, love your family, but choose your peers proactively. You want to be around people that want more, that are going to hold you to a higher standard. They're going to be like, hey, quit whining and go do that. Go make it happen. You deserve it. Like a rising tide lifts all ships. And so you want to get in a group like that, that's going to hold you up and hold you in a higher standard. And it's just so critically important. Nick, awesome to see you, my friend. You added a ton of value today. I appreciate you coming on. And again, guys, check out his A Game podcast. And it's great to see you, brother.
You too. Thanks a lot for having me on. This is a real thrill. I always love touching base. You inspire me every day. I really enjoy your podcast and your community. I appreciate you having me on.
You bet, buddy. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Nick. See you.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our Warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet. Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year, we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step, and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 41411.